Hello everyone, welcome to the YouTube channel. I have a very special guest with me today, and it's going to be a very different style of format. So I want you to welcome Renee Maisonneuve. Renee is a hotshot lawyer in Timmins, Ontario, who was called to the bar at June 2020, and she works for Maisonneuve Dockings. So she does corporate, commercial tax, real estate, employment, wills, and estate law. So today we're going to be talking about what you need to know when you're buying a house. So I want you to welcome Renee.
Hi everyone.
And so we'll jump right into the video. So the first topic we're going to be talking about today is the pros and cons of hiring a real estate agent. So in your opinion, Renee, what are the advantages of getting a real estate agent while buying a house?
So there are very few disadvantages of getting a real estate agent as a buyer. Obviously, as a seller, there's the cost. So a portion of your proceeds of sale, your profit, goes to your real estate agent, usually 4, 5, sometimes 6%. But as a buyer, you don't pay that commission. So you really don't have anything to lose in terms of fees by getting a real estate agent. And you're also getting an expert in the comparable prices in the neighborhood. So when you go to put an offer on a house, you get a professional's opinion on whether that's a good offer, a competitive offer, or just honestly too high for the house.
Yeah, exactly. And my fiance and I, we just bought our first house a few months ago, and that's exactly what we did. Is we went through a real estate agent. Our first one wasn't really good, but our second one was able to get a lot of more knowledge with a bigger real estate agency. So that was really good, and knowing kind of where the comparable of different houses that were selling at that point in time. So the next piece of it is when you do find a house, what you need to do when you put in an offer to the seller. So what are, I guess, some of the main points that people should know about?
So there are two different avenues. If you have a real estate agent, the real estate agent is going to take care of the offer. They're going to help you with conditions, with the price, with drafting up paperwork. If you don't have a real estate agent, the lawyer can help you with the paperwork, but they won't help you with the negotiation process. So a real estate agent will hold your hand a little bit more, help you really go through the negotiation, which can be a little bit awkward on your own. But a lawyer won't go back and forth between the seller and you to come up with a purchase price. So if you have a real estate agent, the agent is going to put the offer in for you. If you don't, you'll have to negotiate directly with the seller.
Yeah, and one of the advantages that I saw working with a real estate agent is that they contact the other real estate agent or the seller them directly if they don't have a real estate agent. And that's where they're able to negotiate, and you probably get a better bang for your buck at that point, and they know exactly what the seller is kind of looking for. So the next thing is, what are some specific conditions? And Renee will talk more about the different types of conditions and how it can help you with your offer.
So conditions are there typically to help the buyer, and usually they'll give the buyer a way out of the agreement if they find out something they don't like about the property or about their financing. So the document that kind of governs the whole sale is the agreement of purchase and sale. So your real estate agent will draft that if you have one. If you don't, your lawyer can draft it. And the agreement has your purchase price, the closing date, and your conditions. So typical conditions would be financing. So you say, I want to buy the house, but I will only buy it if I'm approved by the bank. Another condition that we often see is inspection. I want to buy the house, but it's conditional on me inspecting the property and being okay with it. So that way, if the buyer gets declined by the bank, doesn't need to buy the house. If the buyer finds big problems with the house, like $30,000 in foundation damage, they don't have to buy the house. It doesn't force the seller to negotiate the purchase price, but it offers the buyers a chance to back out of the deal if they want. And now we're seeing a lot of unconditional offers, so people don't put financing conditions, they don't put inspection conditions, and then you're stuck. If the bank doesn't approve you, you're still stuck finding money to buy the house.
Exactly, and a couple points just to add on there. So when the market's slowing down now, but when the market was crazy, that's when a lot of people, they would accept, like the seller would accept an offer without any conditions. And I saw personally that someone accepted an offer $30,000 less compared to someone bidding $30,000 more, which to me is kind of warning because there's probably an issue with the house if the seller's not going to accept $30,000. And those conditions like an inspection is very useful because it only costs you about $500. But yes, that's a sunk cost where you have to pay up front. But if you put $500 and it saves you $30,000 to $40,000 of damages or repairs, that's definitely, to me, a no-brainer. So those are some things that for you to think about. And when you do talk to your real estate agent, those are some things that you can talk with them. And when we negotiated our offer, it took us 11 bids before we actually got our first accepted offer. And by the 9th or 10th one, we started talking about, okay, what are some things that we can make our offer a lot more attractive when the market was really high? And one of the things was the down payment. Usually it's about $500 to $1,000, but we ended up putting $2,500. So it made it a more aggressive offer and a more appealing offer for the seller. So there's a lot of different things that you and your spouse can do to be able to buy a house. So there's some very useful tips for you to think about, and also talk with your real estate agent if you do go that route. So the next subject is more financing. So the difference between a pre-approval and when you actually have an accepted offer. I guess what's the bank's job, and what's, I guess, the lawyer's side as well for that. So you want to just expand a bit on that?
Sure. So let's say you've signed your agreement of purchase and sale, it's official, you're going to be buying the house, and you have a financing condition. You might tell yourself, well, I don't need the financing condition, I've been pre-approved. Pre-approval does not mean that you're going to be approved for a mortgage for the specific house that you're buying. So you might be pre-approved for $400,000, but that's just kind of a general guideline. It gives you an idea of how much you can spend on a house. So then you get competitive, you bid on a house, and you're overbidding on things, and you get an accepted offer for $380,000. And you tell yourself, I'm pre-approved for $400,000. Obviously, I'm going to have financing for $380,000. Maybe not, because the bank might say, well, this house is not worth $380,000. It's only worth $300 in our opinion. So then you're approved for financing only on $300 for that specific house. So you've got a big gap of $80,000 that the bank is not going to cover because you were pre-approved for $400,000, but you're not approved for that specific house for $400,000.
So you need to make sure you distinguish between that. What we did, and which is I encourage all of you to do, is get a pre-approval, because right now the interest rates are going up significantly and very quickly. So what we were able to do with the bank that we dealt with is that once we went in for the pre-approval, we got a mortgage rate, and that mortgage rate got fixed for the next 6 months. So we had 6 months to find a house until we had to get a pre-approval for that interest rate for a mortgage for the next 5 years. So that's one thing, I guess, a benefit for you to go get a pre-approval. And the other thing I want to talk about was with the market decline going right now, because the interest rates are going so high, the demand for houses is going a little bit less because it costs you more for your mortgage because the interest rates are higher, so it makes it less attractive for people to go out and buy homes. Compared to 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, when interest rates were probably 175 to 225, it was really low. It makes it really attractive for first-time home buyers like me to go out and buy a house. Now that the interest rates are a lot higher, now we're seeing that people aren't overbidding for houses. And I've read articles that some houses, when people put in a bid, and by the time that the bank looks at their financing to get the final close on the house was valued at that specific price, but between that time to where the bank looks at it, the price decrease of the houses went down, so they had to redo and do some other bids for the houses because the house wasn't valued the same price at that point in time. So the next part that we're going to talk about is when the bank went through and approved your mortgage. Now we're going to go more on the legal side of things, of what kind of goes in the background and what are some things that Renee or another lawyer that you deal with, but I would definitely suggest Renee as your lawyer, what she's going to go through with you. So what are some things that you would go through with your clients?
Right. So you might hear your lawyer say, we're waiting for mortgage instructions. And you're saying, well, I told you who my bank was. I told you what my interest rate was. But we're waiting for the bank to tell us exactly what your mortgage is going to look like. Because a mortgage is a lien against the house. So someone needs to put that lien on the house, and that's your lawyer. So your lawyer helps you with the purchase and also helps with the mortgage. Okay, and we can't close a deal without mortgage instructions. So if you hear your lawyer say we're trying to close but we're waiting for mortgage instructions, it means that we can't get money without those instructions from the bank. So financially what happens is we get the mortgage amount from the bank and we get your down from you. So if you're putting 5% down on your house, you bring us 5%, the bank gives us 95%, and we send all of that money to the seller's lawyer to pay to the sellers. So you don't have to go to the bank to pick up a check for your mortgage and bring to us, and you don't deliver any money to the sellers. So that's kind of preliminary before we even meet with you, which is why you'll often only meet with your lawyer just a few days before it closes, rather than a week or two before. And if you don't hear from your lawyer, usually no news is good news.
Yeah, which is true, and that's definitely one thing, because I had Renee help us with our house, and we did have a couple issues with our bank, and essentially, like she said, no news is good news, and it ended up being all okay. But some of the things too to consider is, yes, you do put the 5% down, and then there's also some other kind of legal fees, and there's some other different adjustments. So if you would just want to touch upon that.
Right. So let's say you're buying a house in October. You don't want to move into the house and be calling the city asking what taxes are owed to the city for this house that you just bought. So typically what will happen is, depending on when during the year you're buying, the house is going to be fully paid up in terms of property taxes until the next tax bill. Yeah. So if you buy in October, the property taxes are fully paid until December.
Yeah.
But the sellers only own the property until October, and they've paid the entire year in taxes. So you need to reimburse them that amount. And your lawyer is going to calculate that amount for you. So you never need to call the city, at least in Timmins, to find out what the water amounts owing are or what the tax amounts owing are. So your lawyer is going to find out how much that is, and then you'll have to reimburse the seller through your lawyer. So once you go see your lawyer, the amount that you're going to bring in is your down, which is usually 5%, plus the tax and water adjustments, and your lawyer is going to tell you exactly what that is, plus legal fees. So we won't close a deal without having our fees paid. So that amount can be higher than your 5% down by multiple $1,000s if, for example, you're buying at the start of September and the sellers paid taxes all the way through for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and sometimes it kind of flip-flops too. I don't know if you've seen that too much, but if you do buy, I guess maybe in May, and they didn't pay their second half of the year, or let's say in June or July, middle of summer, sometimes would that get subtracted off of your bill?
Very rarely. We don't like crediting purchasers if the seller hasn't paid. So common practice in Timmins is the seller's lawyer is going to make sure that the taxes are fully paid until the next bill.
Okay.
So that way the buyer is not moving in and is wondering, oh my God, I've got a tax bill on the table. Has there been interest on this? Have there been penalties? The one little funky period in Timmins would be July, because your water bill starts in July. You get 2 water bills a year. So if you're buying a house on June 30th, which is a very common real estate day, the seller might not have paid the July 1st water bill. So your lawyer's going to tell you if you need to pay that bill or not.
Okay, well, that's definitely some good information to know, because obviously I'm just an accountant and I'm not a lawyer. But another thing I just want to touch upon really quickly is your down payment. So usually, Renee said, usually it's 5%, and usually that's the minimum, but that's only for houses up to, I guess, 500,000. And then any houses between 500,000 and up to $1 million, you need to do the down payment of 5% for the first 500,000, and anything above that 500,000 up to $1 million is 10%. So I guess you got one cut for 5% and the other cut for 10%. And if you have a home for over $1 million, which we obviously wouldn't see in Timmins, but down south in southern Ontario or Vancouver or other places in Canada, you definitely would see some houses above $1 million where you're going to need 20% down. So even though there is that 20% or whatever amount that you want to put down, just make sure that there are also additional adjustments and fees that come into play when buying a house.
Another fee that you might not think about, if you're not a first-time home buyer, you'll have to pay land transfer tax on your purchase. So first-time home buyers are exempt, you don't need to pay it. But if you're not a first-time home buyer, if you've owned a house anywhere in the world, you're not considered a first-time home buyer and you pay land transfer tax. Land transfer tax is kind of like the HST of real estate. You pay it when you buy, you don't pay it when you sell. And it's roughly 1% of the value of the property. But on a $300,000 house, that can mean an extra $3,000 that you need to pay to be able to buy the house. And we need to pay it on closing. So you should be asking your real estate agent or your lawyer what that amount will be.
And your real estate agent should go through exactly step by step of the different types of fees that you should be asking. If you're still unsure, always contact your lawyer, or Renee in this case, for the different or any questions. And the other thing too that I want to talk about is once all that background stuff is done, and then you meet with your lawyer, and your lawyer should go through every single page and explain to you step by step what kind of went through in the background. Then what are some things that you should expect on move-in day?
So moving day can be stressful for buyers, but I tell them, don't take the day off for this and wait at my office at 9 o'clock in the morning for keys. You likely won't get them. So technically, we can close the deal anytime between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Realistically, you'll get keys between 1 and 4 p.m., especially if there's a chain going on. So let's say your sellers you're using funds from a sale of your house to buy another one, then we need to close the sale to close your purchase. So sometimes people end up homeless for a few hours because they've sold their house and they haven't bought yet.
Yeah.
But on closing day, you'll get a call from your lawyer once the keys are ready to be picked up.
Yeah, so that's essentially what happened with me. I think it was around 2 or 3 o'clock that I got the keys. So so just remember, I guess, these different tips. And they're very useful. And again, if you have any questions, definitely ask your lawyer. So before we let you go, today we went through A to Z exactly what you need to know and the tips that you need to know when buying a house. This can be your first time home buyer or if you're buying or upgrading a new house. But before we let you go, we just want to, or I want to ask Renee, what is something that the viewers should take? If it's one thing, what should they know when buying a house?
The main thing is don't be afraid to ask questions. You're not a lawyer, you're probably not a professional home buyer, you're not a mortgage broker, an insurance broker. There's so many people involved in the process of buying a house. Nobody expects you to know everything. So I always tell my clients, email, call, text, reach out to me anytime with questions. They're usually simple questions for me that you could waste hours researching. So reaching out is the best thing to do. And I typically will give a checklist to prospective home buyers, and it kind of helps you go through the process and can give you a little bit of guidance of the step ahead.
Yeah, so if you ever want to reach out to Renee, I'm going to put her contact information in the link in the description of this video. And I just want to thank you, Renee, for taking the time. And before we let you go, I just want to let you know if you like the video, I just want you to like and subscribe. It'll help grow the channel. And I want to thank you for watching the video, and I hope you have a great day.